For today's episode, we've compiled some of our favorite examples of agencies that have created real separation from their competition. That can oftentimes be really difficult to do within the insurance broker world because there is so much competition. But for the best agencies, they are really good at creating separation. And so these are some of our favorite examples that we've seen from the show so far. Now, that being said, a lot of these, you could take these exact examples and deploy that yourself. But what I'd really encourage you to do is, what are some of the trends that you're seeing and how can you really make those own in your respective area, your respective niche, your respective industry, whatever that may be. But regardless, these ones are all excellent examples, and I hope you enjoy. Ryan, I think one of the things that's obvious, anybody that's been in the space for any amount of times knows you're one of the biggest voices within the insurance community. So I would love to dive in on the content creation for the agency audience as opposed to the consumer and business audience.
I learned the power of content marketing in general through my work direct to consumer through the agency. I learned the power of what it meant to build a personal brand and have a voice and a take through my first podcast, which was called Content Warfare. I've always been a staunch believer that what telling your story consistently, your value structure, what you believe in, your thoughts, your takes, etc., what that does is, it builds an audience, and some people do it because they want to be a celebrity. That's never been the reason for me. My take is that every person in a leadership position or every person that desires a leadership position should have a personal brand. Because when people want to partner with you, they want to know what you're about. They go to your LinkedIn. If someone wants to find out more about you as a person, maybe they go to your Instagram or your Facebook. If someone wants to see, what does this person actually believe? What's their philosophy around sales or marketing or HR or customer experience or web design or whatever thing it is that you do, right? Are you writing about it? Are you talking about it? Is there a place where I can go and actually get a feel for who are you following? If you're telling me that you're great at what you do and you haven't shared a single take or haven't commented in a forum or haven't written an article or a white paper or done a few videos on what you do, how much do you love what you do? 10 years ago, this is not the same thing. But today, if you want to be a leader or you're a leader, I need to know what you're all about. If you want to be the person grossing the top income, the person who recruiters are reaching out to, who the company or the CEO that's always getting inbound partnership requests, et cetera, right? You have to have a brand. You have to be out there sharing your thoughts and feelings. Every prospect starts at 0 trust. And when you get them to 100 trust, right, that's when they buy. Content is the mechanism to fill that trust gap before they ever talk to you. So the more targeted your content is, the more it speaks to your target audience, the more consistently you're put out in your value structure, who you are, what you can do, who you help, adding value, contrarian ideas, thoughtful stuff, whatever it is, right? The more you do that, the more people see it, the higher that trust bar goes up before they ever speak to you.
I think that depending on what you're doing, there are tons of people that are ultra successful that you've just never heard of whatsoever. But the caveat to that is, if you have a personal brand, if you're putting thoughtful content out there, it is absolutely a catalyst. And the opportunities that can come your way that you're not expecting are 100% there. There's no question. Matt, look, we've been talking about this for a while. You founded GNN. GNN became not only one of the fastest growing agencies in the country, but you were also one of the fastest growing businesses on the Inc. 5000. And then you sold GNN to the Hilb Group, and you sold to Hilb at a really interesting time. That's when they were on their rise as well. Along that rise, one of the things that I thought was super interesting, and we had talked about it before, but then doing my own research is this bobblehead campaign. I would love to get into the weeds on.
We had no idea what we were doing, but we were throwing everything against the wall. And we had recently seen an Office episode of Dwight Schrute and his bobblehead. We weren't taking any money at the time. So, the $10,000 purchase of 100 bobbleheads was a big deal. But we were having some success with realtors and mortgage brokers and attorneys and, engaging with them and getting referrals and creating a network, opportunity there. We just decided to go all in that space. And so we researched and found the top producers in those different, industries of mortgage and real estate and attorney. And we made them all into bobbleheads unbeknownst to them. So custom to them. And then we, hand delivered some of them and we mailed out a lot of them, basically nice packaging, branded to them, what it means to be part of the bobblehead family and community. And we got two reactions. It was either, this is so weird, but let's meet because, thank you. And this is the coolest gift I've ever got. I'm going to put it up. And, we even had people who received it, their kids had broken it and they reached back out. I'm so sad. Is there any way I can get another one? And so we realized quickly, that was an interesting way to get in the door with from a network effect perspective and create relationships right off the bat with people that probably would have taken a lot longer to say yes to meet with. And it just generated a lot of momentum. And then we just kept on doing it. So over the course of, I don't know, call it 7 or 8, 9 years, we made 1,300 bobbleheads, and there's probably not a mortgage broker, realtor in Massachusetts who, was a heavy producer who didn't have one. It then spawned into, hey, this brand is working. We started consulting across the industry and speaking on different stages, different events, and started a consulting firm called Bobble On. It just naturally morphed into vlogging and video series and podcasting and all the other things, and kind of drove the brand internally within the industry, which we had never any intent of doing. To today, it really created a tremendous amount of relationships and partnerships and trusted friendships that wouldn't have had otherwise. So it was a good decision.
Talking with mortgage and originators and loan officers, a pretty common practice. But why was it what was kind of some of those early points where you know what, we got to go all in on this? Because that's a very scary move to go from friends, family, just pushing referrals as much as you can in that world versus we're just focusing on home buyers specifically, not necessarily just homeowners, but home buyers.
One of the things that made us successful previous to starting our own business was understanding the power of referrals, not just from former clients, but when you don't have any former clients, you need to get referrals from centers of influence. And so when we started our business, we had a lot of centers of influence that were just across, the full gamut, from all different industries, from different relationships. Not all leads are created equal. Not all referrals are created equal. So about a year in, we started to assess, hey, we get this number of referrals and leads and opportunities. What closes? We feel like these are better than these, but let's actually look at the numbers and the data. And so we did an assessment, and it was very clear when we got introduced to people who were buying property, they needed what we had to offer. It was time-based. The closing ratio was much higher. The speed from open to close was a lot quicker. It just made a lot of sense. And so there's a big enough industry here. We only do X number of closings or, clients that are closing a year. We can cross almost every time to other lines of business. Let's just try it. Let's go all in on it. And so I think it was enough proof in the relationships that we had. We just needed more of them. So this was like a fun marketing event early on that sort of spawned into bigger things.
So Curtis, when I was researching, if you look at Alchemy, 21 on Insurance Journal Top 100, over 1,500 employees, 90 plus different offices, 35 states, across 35 states, $2 billion in premiums written. And then probably the one that I'm most impressed with is over 122 million in EBITDA. I've heard you talk a lot in previous interviews about, how you had grew your initial book to 2.5 million when you were first getting into this with security guards and a number of different niche markets. And I heard you talk about how you guys are arming your producers with a process and technology to essentially, my words, not yours, put that on steroids. What does that look like?
When you're in sales, when you're starting off and you're starting at zero, it's a hard business to start. And that's why the dropout rate is so high, especially on the commercial side of the business, is because it's really challenging to get a book moving. And so I always tell people, if you're going to start the business, pick something And maybe it's not a passionate thing, but pick a niche that you can be good at, and then hyper niche, which means drive deeper and niche within a niche.
Yep.
And that drives diversification. Well, what it does is it drives expertise, and then you be a thought leader. And so you put a lot of content out around that specific niche so that you're constantly in front of people talking to them about problems that their business is facing. And we took it a step further in my agency where we front branded. Every one of our producers had their own brand that they ran that was specifically geared towards the niche they were in. And I'll use security guards as an example. At the time, we started buysecurityguard.com. Super simple. It was a direct hit. This shows you how long ago it was. But we were able to run that. The whole website was geared towards security guards only. So you're not searching through 100 different things to figure out who's the guy that handles security guards. You're front and center. It's all about you. It's all about your business. It's all information geared towards your business. It makes you an immediate expert. And so you become the expert in the industry. And then basically as Google switched their calculations around on how they looked at direct hit URLs, we moved to Guard Pro Insurance and still exists today as a sub brand. But the bottom line is to create the I don't want to say illusion, but create the illusion that that's all you do.
Yeah.
And it just makes life a lot simpler. And when you know your product and you know the industry that you're going after, it makes your sales process that much more streamlined because you know where their holes are, you know where their problems are, you know how to fix them quickly. When you're sporadically just writing anything, you can't be an expert of all things. A jack of all trades, master of none type scenario. It's like really know, and then you can start to predict and analyze like what are their issues, why are they having issues, where do you see it, and those discussions aren't then about a sale. It's an educational process that leads to a sale later, and that's the way we've always thought about it. So we really look at Alchemy when we look for bolt-on acquisitions. We really look for people that have a specialty. What is different about you as an agency owner and your agency in particular that's going to make me interested in it, right? And why do I think that that's going to be interesting for Alchemy as a whole and for all the shareholders I work for? And how do I create value through that? And so what we always look at is what industries do we like? What industries do we think we can mirror and counter and actually put into our puzzle and kind of bring across the rest of our network and create internal cross-sell, which then pumps organic growth.
Patrick, I'm super excited to have you on the show. One of the things that I really wanted to dive into was when we spoke, you talked about a niche focus that you had on going after owners of Harley Davidson motorcycles. And my first thought was, all right, that's pretty unique. I mean, those are expensive, but I just didn't anticipate like a biker gang being like that was the niche that you focused on. But as I'm thinking about it, I'm like, okay. And then you quickly were like, well, I'm not targeting biker gangs, but
Right. The one percenters are not the percent I'm looking for. Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So where did this start?
So I actually grew up in the kind of in the motorcycle world. My dad, who passed away when I was very, very young, and I never knew him personally, but he rode motocross for Honda. My grandfather rode motocross for Honda. And it was actually a couple of years ago, I just went out on St. Patrick's Day. I went out and bought a motorcycle. And my wife was mad. She was so mad. So I had to tell her and find a reason, really, I had to find a reason why this was going to be a business expense or business related. So the more I dug into how I could do this, I kept realizing the similarity of people with bikes like this. And I had that bike for about a year, and then I upgraded to a nice, really big full dresser Harley. And everybody who has a full dresser Harley is making, their upper income, they're the upper echelon of income in our region. They're $30,000 motorcycles. When you've got a $30,000 motorcycle and you have a new seat that you put on it and new handlebars and new exhaust pipes and all the things that people do, a new seat or saddle is $1,000. Handlebars are $1,200 plus labor. New pipes are an extra $2,500 or $3,000. This is not something that every client every person out there can afford. So if I start looking at the socioeconomic platform of who these people are,
This is not the bare minimum, you know, street bike. This is somebody who's got, whether they're paying cash or they're paying a, $500 to $700 a month car payment on a motorcycle, on top of the upgrades and accessories, and then all the gear that goes with it, and the riding and the touring and all the things that happen. I started looking at the type of person that did this, and these folks own a home. They're typically married, 1 to 2 cars. They've got a truck and a trailer that they're putting that bike on. These are the people that have the ancillary money, or that disposable money to spend on these items, and they have the ancillary lines of business that we can go grab. So they own a home, which means they own 2 cars, which means they have a motorcycle and a trailer. So instead of 1 to 2 policies that we can put in place, or 2 exposures, we went to 5 to 6 in a heartbeat, just by targeting people that would buy that Harley Davidson. And we did this through a lot of content. We did a lot through Reddit, and we started putting blogs out there on Reddit on which seats you should buy for this type of bike. What kind of handlebars can you buy for this? And if you're looking at what saddle goes on my 2025 Harley Davidson Road Glide, that means you've got one or you're buying one. Reddit was it was actually less expensive to put product on there. And if we wanted to advertise, we tried this very little. We didn't have to, because there wasn't a ton of content out there. So we would actually go out there, post the content, and it would pixelate that audience, and then we would run ads to that audience. Instead of running ads on Reddit itself to promote that content, we would pixelate the content and then run ads to that audience once they hit it. So it's a custom audience based on people looking at this saddle or these handlebars or what we had to do. So we wrote some content, put it out there, and we're able to do substantially well with it, because we knew what they were looking for. We didn't spend a ton of money on the ads, and we didn't spend a ton of money anywhere else. But what we did is we became the people that knew about your motorcycle, and we knew if you had a motorcycle or you had a certain style of bike or been riding for a certain amount of time, you had certain assets that we could be the person. And it almost immediately after that first 9 to 10 months, because we started it in the spring through the first winter, and by the next spring, we actually didn't turn the ads back on, because we were already engaged at such a deep enough level with the referral networks inside the groups. We had permeated the groups locally that people were like, hey, listen, McBride does a great job. And I had never met most of the people that say I wrote, which was the wild part for me.
That is so cool. So you used the paid ads to get you into the space, and then you're part of the community. It was a natural fit at that point to pass it to you.